Now we're going to shift gears to a topic that I know is incredibly important to all the marketers I work with. We've discussed it broadly in a lot of our panels, and that's the whole notion of using AI I'm sorry, I apologize. It's using AI to personalize the digital experience intelligently at scale. Huge issue. We've circled around it, and Mark Bornstein's actually got to come in and dig into that. And I'm super excited for this one because moves the needle.
I figure if we're doing walk-up music, I'm going to do it my way. That's how I roll. Hey everybody, my name is Mark Bornstein. I am the VP of Marketing at On24. If you don't know On24, we are a digital engagement platform, everything from virtual experiences, content experiences, webinars, big part of it. And why am I here? I'm here because we work with a lot of financial services. It's our big sector, financial services companies. We work with a who's who of Fortune 500 financial services companies, but also with a ton of boutique funds and stuff like that. And so we have a ringside seat as to how these organizations are essentially transforming into the digital world and how we're engaging clients, how we're educating advisors more effectively. And so much has changed in the past few years. What I want to do now, very quickly, is show you how there are all of these new innovations that are changing everything. You've heard over the past few days, how do we use AI and how do we use ChatGPT? Wrong question, wrong answer. A lot of these new technologies are being integrated into the very foundational technologies that you use every day. And what we can do now in terms of how we build digital engagement is transformed completely. So, as opposed to most of what you've been seeing for the last 2 days, I'm not going to stand up here and tell you, know your client or be authentic. I'm going to show you tactical stuff that you can do right now. So this is going to be a much more tactical session. Everything is, I don't have to tell you that through digital channels is now how we are dealing, it's how we're personalizing advisor engagement, it's how we're dealing with investor education, institutional investors, individual investors, it is how we are delivering certification at scale. This is where we need to be today. And somebody beat me to the punch with this slide earlier this afternoon. But when it comes to things like webinars and virtual event marketing and virtual marketing in general, we have a tendency to do things the same way over and over and over again. And what I want to show you is just how much things have changed. How many of you give webinars today as a part of your business? A lot, okay. Well, this is how you know whether your webinar marketing is stuck in the past. It is a passive experience. Your audience can do nothing but sit and watch. And for the longest time, we always thought that this is what we use digital technologies to do, to simply present, to educate them. That's enough. That's what we should be doing. It's not anymore, and I'll show you that. It's a live event only. It's a moment in time, and then it goes away. We get no more use or value out of that content. It is a one-size-fit-all experience. We're presenting to everybody. We invite everybody, and we sort of hope that everybody gets enough value out of that experience. And what we're sort of optimizing for is just to get people to show up. That's old-school marketing. And everything is changing today, and there's so much digital transformation. Artificial intelligence is just the beginning of it. We've got all this new machine learning, predictive analytics, all the automation capabilities that are in these systems that we use today, and yes, all the personalization capabilities, but we tend to think of them as these things that we're going to take from outside and ratchet them into our marketing, and I want to show you how it can be integrated directly into your marketing in ways that we're using. So I want to show you these multiplier effects, these things that are happening now in terms of how we engage audiences. Webinars, by the way, for an old technology that's been around for a long time, they're still, for most companies, one of the top 3 pipeline influencing channels, or the best, or the biggest opportunity we have to engage and certify at scale. On average, few hundred people attend a webinar. People are still staying there for a majority of an hour. People say, well, everything needs to be snackable these days. Not true. Audiences are watching hour-long webinars with no problem. It's the way they are looking to educate themselves. They're not showing up at a hotel ballroom like this, right? That's for sure. And this is where audiences are. Your audiences today, yes, you need social media to get them interested. Yes, you need to build ad campaigns to find them. But when it comes to engaging them, when it comes to educating them, they're looking for longer form content. They're looking for different ways. And in these experiences, they want to be engaged, they want to interact, they want to connect, they want to participate. They're not looking for passive experiences anymore. And they're looking for more value. And so when you think about what a webinar, for example, could be, the idea is not to simply get somebody to show up and listen to you talk about a fund. Your goal is to engage them. How much can I get them to do? How many actions can I get them to take? Because it is through those actions, digital engagement, which is the new way in which we will succeed in this new digital future, that is how we're going to get the first-party data to tell us who they are, what their needs are, how do we nurture them? What is that going to look like? Everybody keeps saying, know your clients, or know your prospective clients. Well, how? Through social media? No, we're not going to do it that way. So we need to sort of figure out a way to more effectively engage people. And so when I say, and I'm talking to financial services companies all the time, and I was just talking to a big one recently, and they ran this whole big webinar series, and they were really proud of it. I'm like, well, tell me about it. And they're like, well, we got 1 million people to show up. I'm like, great, then what? What do you mean? We got 1 million people to show up. The goal is not to get them to simply watch. It is to get them to ask questions, to chat, to download content, to maybe ask to speak to a fund manager. It's to, how much can we get them to do in every single interaction? And that's where technology is guiding us today. When we talk about digital data and first-party data, what we're talking about is how are we learning about these people through the actions they take in every single digital touch point? Whether it is a webinar, a virtual event, a content experience on your website, whether it is a landing page you may be sending to them. Every experience needs to be interactive and needs to be engagement-driven. So when I talk to people about how you architect experiences for audiences, it's like putting an entire buyer's journey, whether that is you're selling to individual clients or institutional investors, or maybe you're just educating. You're loading up all of these options and things for people to do. This is what a modern webinar looks like. It's not just a presentation over a Zoom call. It is an experience. It is an engaging experience where you may be trying to book meetings right from that experience as your primary CTA. Maybe you're delivering professional certification right there. You're doing testing and certification in that experience. You might have a whole bunch of related content that people are downloading simultaneously. You may have a take action button where you're promoting another experience, or you're asking somebody to come to a big physical event, or maybe you're trying to drive them to a meeting, whatever that is. So we're architecting these experiences in ways that are not just educating audiences, but are helping us learn about them. Who are they? And suddenly, this experience becomes a map of engagement where we're literally learning where their needs are, what their interests are, and we can figure out what that right nurture path is next. Well, that's not good. Oh, okay, I think I hit a button. And this is where we see webinars being used in so many different use cases in financial services. We see webinars for advisor education and continuing education. We see wealth management companies using webinars, I can tell you that firsthand, to educate people on what's going on, what their outlooks are, what their perspectives are, where they're changing investments. We see asset management companies doing the same thing. We see webinars being created for institutional client groups. Portfolio managers using them more effectively, pension updates, hedge fund updates. We need to find ways to have real conversations with our audiences that go beyond a commercial, that go beyond a tweet, that go beyond a LinkedIn post. And this is what's happening. This is what the financial services companies, large and small, even the smallest ones, are doing now to try to create a broader, deeper connection. They also want to be viewed as the places where people go for thought leadership. This is the company that I go to when I need information. So here's an example. This is S&P Global, and they run all kinds of crazy webinars for different audience types. And you can see it's not just a presentation. There's all these different things happening. They're pushing out polls and taking questions. They've got surveys. And there's all these different ways an audience can engage in real time. See, I told you we were going to get tactical today. This is so they're driving people to content. They're driving people to web pages. They're asking people to show up for other events. They're leading you through they had a demo of this financial package that they were trying to drive people into right from that webinar. They are on-demand hub where after it was over, you could go binge on more content. I'll get to that in a minute. So there's all these different ways in which they're surrounding their audience in stuff to do. Very technical term, stuff to do. That's what every digital touch point needs to look like. We need more robust marketing. We cannot be successful if we're simply relying on these tiny little touch points. We need to do more. And we need to surround our audience with a trail of breadcrumbs, because we know not everything is right for everybody. People going to this S&P Global experience, some people will be ready to speak to somebody about that package, that financial package they were talking about. Some people not. Maybe they just want to link to a web page, or maybe they're just educating themselves and then they're looking for a video. Whatever it is, you're surrounding them in content options. And it is working. So we do a big benchmarks report every year, and we saw with financial services companies this year, 26% increase in meetings bookings from these digital engaging experiences, 22% increase in click-throughs to high-value CTAs. People are voting by clicking. They're showing you they don't want that passive experience. They want you to give them things to do, right? In the same way, and people are like, well, doesn't that distract them? Have you seen this? Right? Like, audiences are distracted anyway. And in every application that we use in our personal lives, we're surrounded with stuff to do. Same thing for professional certification. We see more financial services companies than ever delivering professional certification at scale through webinars and through digital experiences. 58% increase in just a few years, which is huge. And no longer having to go to a learning management system to get a certificate, making it easier to do that. Here's a great example of a company doing that right now, GlobalX, where they've got this, they're talking about India opportunities, and you could literally test out and get a certificate all in real time. So we're doing a lot in these experiences, but that's where now innovation comes in and changes everything. So there's a couple of big things I wanted to tell you about today. And everybody, I'm watching most of these sessions today, everybody talks about personalization in a different way. But in these experiences, this is where personalization and AI and all the capabilities we have really come to life. This is not some high-level whatever. So let's just take this idea of we're giving these, like a webinar to a large group of people. Well, how do we personalize it for every unique individual who's watching? Now we can actually do that. So let's take our little hypothetical webinar here that we built. Our primary CTA was to book a meeting, but we've got lots of different types of people coming to that webinar. We've got individual investors, institutional investors, intermediaries, and maybe we've got different CTAs that we would want each of them to see. Now we have the ability, and I'm speaking generally, I'm not here to promote any one technology, but I will just share it from our perspective. You have the ability to literally segment your audience and say, okay, instead of everybody seeing one CTA, we're going to have different audiences see different things in each of those experiences. So your individual investor may get one, ad, your institutional investors may get a completely different one. And we can do this now with everything. We can personalize, let's just look client versus advisor, CTAs, available content, survey questions, certification and testing and certificate generation. We can even move people into different discussion groups or breakout groups with advisors after maybe you do a 20-minute webinar, and then they can jump into advisor conversations. And we can even segment them and bring them into the right group. Everything is changing. Everything is changing in terms of what we can do. This is real practical stuff that you can do right now. This is not future-looking stuff. So the same webinar, multiple audiences seeing a completely different experience, delivering more value. And it's working. We've seen a 2.7x increase in people downloading content from an experience that has been more personalized, 3x increase in registrants, 2.5 increase in meetings bookings when you're speaking to specific audiences in specific ways. This is what we can do digitally now. And I invite you to sort of close your eyes. Well, don't close your eyes, look at the slide. But think about how you might personalize audiences. It could be by business relationship, investor type. It could be by investment history. It could be by certification history, advisor priority. It doesn't, whatever. There are so many ways in which we can now. Segmentation used to be the foundation of great marketing 20 years ago, but it was all done by hand. Today, segmentation is the most important part of personalization. So as you begin to think about who are my audiences, I'm going to create a big experience, invite a lot of people, and I'm going to target these different audiences in different ways. We can do so much more. Couple other things. There is a trend that has been developing over the past few years, and that is that audiences are essentially taking in experiences on their own time more than ever before. We looked at financial services, and 64% of people that come to a webinar watch live, 37% watch on demand. When you take the industry out and basically look at everybody, it's almost 50-50. People are looking for on-demand experiences more than ever, and so we see companies creating these, these content hubs, or you can call them our portals, anything you want, but they're creating these little experiences on their web pages where here are 2 on-demand webinars, here's a couple of videos, here are a few PDFs. Everything you need to know about this one thing is on this page, and you're creating these targeted mini experiences. And this is sort of the direction that we see people going in. This is Charles Schwab, where you sort of, it's like a content hub, but slightly different in that you're creating these channels, these places that people can sort of go and they can click through to find the content that they need. So that's another trend that is emerging. And then the final thing, and probably the most important thing I wanted to share with you, is ways in which we can use AI that go beyond, it really drives me crazy because I've been on tour doing a lot of big marketing conferences the last few weeks, and so I've been attending a bunch of sessions, and everybody's talking about AI, and so many people are like, how do we use ChatGPT more effectively? And this is financial services, for heaven's sakes. Like, no. But we now have a way to apply AI in ways that actually do make sense, especially for this particular industry. Webinars are where we do our best storytelling, right? Where else do you have 30 minutes or an hour in front of your clients or in front of your advisors? And so, it's our longest form of content. It's our most engaging content in most cases. It's where our thought leadership lives. But more importantly, it's where your voice lives. It's where your tonality, who you are as a brand, lives. And so, how do we bring that all to life? Well, in the past, repurposing a webinar into new content is just too hard, right? We do too many webinars. There's just too much content in there. We don't have the content marketing team, perhaps, to turn that into anything new. I used to run a content marketing team, and if I assigned a webinar to somebody to create a blog post or something, they'd be like, all right, see you in 2 months. Well, enter AI, and now this is what I talk about. AI being integrated into the foundational technologies you use is how AI is really going to change your life. Not what you can do with going to just some random LLM out there. And so there's a lot of different things we can do. We can basically take a webinar, and when it's over, we can take that transcript and now suddenly just apply different languages to it. I just did a webinar the other day, and When it was over, artificial intelligence created 5 versions of that. There is me speaking in Mandarin, me speaking in Italian, me speaking in French. It is me. It is my voice. My lips are moving slightly differently. That's what's changed. And it's remarkable. I was going to show you a video of that, but I was afraid I wouldn't have time. But not only that, like when your webinar is over, we can turn it into a transcript. We can, from that transcript, create a 1-page summary of everything you talked about, which maybe you'll use that content for sales follow-up or advisor follow-up. Maybe you'll use that for web content or whatever. You can then take that and say, I just did this. I ran a big webinar, and the webinar was over, and it's like, okay, great job, Mark. Do you want a blog post? Yeah, I want a blog post. Boom, press a button, a blog post pops up. Do you want an ebook based on everything you talked about? Yes, I want that ebook. You can even strip out the video and just take the audio and move it into a podcast. All of a sudden, artificial intelligence is taking that content and turning it into all these new derivative forms of content. Now, where this is different is this. This is AI-generated content based on your content, based on your voice, based on your tonality. And this is why compliance officers go crazy when we go to LLMs and say, create some content for me. Because this is what we used to do. If I ran a webinar on a specific topic and I wanted a companion piece of content, I'd go to an LLM and say, give me something about that. No, this is basically your content. It's more compliance friendly. It's not perfect, but it's more compliance friendly. It's your words, it's your voice, your tonality. It doesn't assume your company's perspective. It is your company's perspective. And it's easier to produce and edit. And I just did a big presentation with somebody from Thomson Reuters recently. And she was saying she loves this because it gives her version C, not version A, meaning it's so close to who we are, we don't have to do that much editing for it. It's not perfect every time, but it's getting really, really good. And so this is the way in which I think AI is really going to move into our lives in a more effective way. Not simply just using large language models, but applying it to what we do, to who we are. We can do more than that. If we're delivering a really engaging webinar and people are asking questions and talking, we now literally have the ability to use AI to heat map a presentation. So I did that webinar the other day, and it literally said, Mark, great job. There were like 4 different periods where people were really dialed in, asking lots of questions, downloading stuff, chatting a lot. Do you want that 30 seconds of those little periods of time? And suddenly, it's cutting video clips out for me of those key moments from that presentation. Now I've got new derivative video content that I never had before, and I didn't have to do anything to make. It just did it for me. Or I could just go into the transcript and highlight a piece that I really liked and cut it, and boom, I've got a video clip of that. And suddenly now I've got video content that I'm using for social. Maybe just gave a great webinar. Here's 20 seconds of what happened. Click here to watch the on-demand version now. Or in some cases, I'll stitch it together, and I've got net new content for another presentation or that I'm going to put on my website. You see where we're going here? All of a sudden, this is new. This is how we're going to. I had a do more with less slide. Where's that guy here? Is he here? It was a great presentation, but he started with a do more with less, and I had that same slide, and thank God I took it out. I think he's the same guy who had the old way, new way thing. Anyway, great minds. But this is how we get out of the email inbox. I know all of you are facing the same problem. Like, how many emails can we send, right? We can't rely on email anymore, and social channels need to activate more effectively. And suddenly we're taking a virtual event or a webinar, we're creating all this derivative content, and suddenly we're feeding all those channels with real content. Real content that is going to be effective. We can even do this, last innovation. You can auto-generate a landing page. We call them nurture pages, but like an outbound landing page. So let's just say you ran a great webinar, and so you can say, okay, auto-generate a custom nurture page for everybody that registered and didn't attend, and hey, you know what? Sorry we missed you. Here's a couple of videos from what you missed, key moments. Click here to watch on demand now. And oh, by the way, do you want to come to this other event we've got? And oh, by the way, here's a chatbot. And oh, by the way, here are 2 other pieces of content. Every single audience touch point in this new world must be experiential. Every audience touch point, from a page on your website to a virtual event to a webinar to a customized landing page, everything must have more than one thing. And we can do this now, and we're using all of these tools to essentially turn every presentation you deliver into a full campaign, into an active full campaign. That's where we're going. So in the world that I live in where a virtual experience, a virtual conference, or an individual advisor webinar, what we see now is these companies are basically not looking at it like a webinar. They look at it as an entire campaign. There's a live event, there's an on-demand event, and there's all this repurposed content that is feeding all these channels. This is where we're going. And then at the end, the pot of gold at the end of that rainbow is you're aggregating all those touch points and you're getting all that first-party data. Somebody comes to a live event and they're asking questions and they're downloading content and they're clicking on CTAs and signing up for other events or maybe asking for an appointment. And you're aggregating it across every single one of these touch points. This is how we get to know these people more effectively. And this is how you make your advisors better. Because we integrate this into our marketing automation technologies. We integrate it into our CRM systems so that every single time an advisor gets a notification that somebody came to an event, they can see everything they did and make that phone call. This is how we get so much better. So the future is this idea of, this may seem like, well, this is only for the S&P Globals of the world or the Charles Schwabs. No. Even small organizations are doing the same thing because it's now, everything I showed you is easy. You can do it with the press of a button. But companies need to build their own web, their own network of experiences, from one-off a 15-minute advisory session to 30-minute thought leadership webinars to 1-hour wealth management presentations to virtual events to outbound landing pages, inbound content hubs on your website where they can binge on more content. And you have this sort of where every touch point leads to another touch point. No dead ends. Every single touch point leads to another touch point. And it creates this multiplier effect. And this is where we are going. The ability to optimize, here are your takeaways. Every single live engagement touch point should be optimized for engagement, not just listening. Dude. Segmentation and personalization, they don't care. Segmentation and personalization, like we have the ability now to personalize in new ways that we never could before. Everything is on demand. And then everything ultimately becomes a campaign. So, that's it. That's all I wanted to share today. On24 is, we're a single platform for all these digital experience types. There are many. And we have this foundation of AI. So this is what we do. If you want to learn a little bit more about it, we're right next door. We'd love to talk to all of you. And I've got exactly 8 seconds. We're about to take a break. So if you do have questions, come on over and see me right after this. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody.
So much.
Yeah, thanks for coming.